Hello and welcome to Network Africa on Channels Television. I'm Joke Rogers. We begin in Sudan today, where a massive fire broke out yesterday near a military complex containing an arms factory in southern Khartoum. The fire that began in the morning suddenly grew in size before sunset on Wednesday as explosions were heard. Some locals say the fires were caused by the bombing of the fuel and gas depots, and that houses in the area have been hit by shells and stray bullets. In some of the fiercest fighting for weeks in its conflict with the RSF, Sudan's army has battled to defend the factory. In the 8th week of a power struggle with the regular army, witnesses say the paramilitary rapid support forces attacked the heavily protected, sprawling Yamuk complex. The group posted videos today in which it claimed to have taken over a warehouse filled with weapons and ammunition, as well as several entry points to the site. Reports say the army used airstrikes to try to repel the RSF advance. Meanwhile, Sudan's Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan has replaced two state governors, North Kordofan State Governor Fadala al-Tom and Sena State's al-Alim Ibrahim al-Nur. This comes as fighting has intensified between the army and its rival, the RSF, in the capital Khartoum and other areas. No reason was given for the dismissal, and caretaker governors have been appointed. Parts of North Kordofan have witnessed fierce battles between the warring parties, though there has been no fighting in the Sena state. At least 883 civilians have been killed and more than 3,800 others wounded since the conflict erupted on April the 15th. And medical systems are on the brink of collapse in Sudan's greater capital area, as 70% of medical institutions there shut down due to the festering conflict and disruptions. The protraction of hostilities has caused scarcity of medical resources and supplies for humanitarian aid. Sudan's greater capital area is composed of Khartoum, Omdurman, and Khartoum North, and the still struggling hospitals there are facing disruptions of power, fuel, medicine, and professional personnel. According to officials working for the last hospital still operating in Omdurman, they mainly rely on their own generators, as the city only offers a few hours of power and water supply each day. Ahmed Ziat, an official with the Al-Nur Teaching Hospital, says medical supplies such as antibiotics and painkillers have already or are about to run out, forcing them to suspend some services such as obstetrics and neonatal emergency, among others. And U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has met with Saudi Foreign Minister Faisal bin Farhan in Riyadh, attending the joint ministerial meeting of the Gulf Cooperation Council, or the GCC. The two also pledged to continue cooperation to end fighting in Sudan. A U.S. official said earlier that Mr. Blinken had an open, candid conversation with Saudi Crown Prince in the early hours of Wednesday about a wide range of bilateral issues. The much-anticipated visit comes amid frayed ties due to deepening disagreements on everything from Iran policy to regional security issues, oil prices, and human rights.
Responding to the latest crisis in Sudan, we're continuing to push to silence the guns, suppress humanitarian access, to help the Sudanese people realize their demands for a transition to democracy.
And nearly 300 children have been safely rescued from an orphanage in Sudan's capital, Khartoum. They had been staying at the Maigoma orphanage, where more than 70 children are reported to have died from hunger and illness since the conflict in Sudan broke out in mid-April. The orphanage is an area of the city where the conflict has been raging, according to the International Committee of the Red Cross. Aged between 1 month and 15 years, 297 children have been taken to Wad Madani, about 200 kilometers from Khartoum. They're now at a transit center at the UN Children's Agency. UNICEF is working with the relevant authorities to identify suitable foster families for them.
It's really in the midst of the conflict, so you have front lines which are 800 meters from the orphanage. We are really very happy that we could carry out this operation. So this was requested by both parties, and we could, as a neutral and impartial organization, carry out this operation, get all the security guarantees to be able to carry out this operation. It was really heartbreaking to see all these children, some of them having mental health conditions, some other health conditions, to be there in the midst really of conflict. So during the operation there was some activities which we heard also, and these children have been there for the past 6 weeks. So it was really for us really a relief to see that we could bring them to safety now.
And even as fighting continues in Sudan, the United Nations, along with its partners, are scaling up to reach more people in need. This is according to UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric, who was briefing journalists in New York. He also said the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has facilitated the movement of at least 148 of relief items through various parts of the country.
Even as fighting continues, we, along with our partners, are scaling up to reach more people in need. Since May 24th, the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has facilitated the movement of at least 148 trucks carrying some 7,400 tons of relief items to various parts of the country. Ceasefire or not, we will continue to deliver, but we need an end to the violence, and we need an end to the looting of humanitarian facilities, which is completely unconscionable. Our revised humanitarian response plan for Sudan is less than 16% funded. Of the $2.6 billion required for this year's response, we have received just over $400 million.
Other news now, the Ethiopian army has thwarted an attack by Somali Islamist Shabab fighters against a border town between the two countries. According to the Ethiopian Foreign Ministry, the attack was against the locality of Dolo on the Ethiopian-Somalia border. In a brief post on Twitter, the ministry said it neutralized suicide bombers and destroyed weapons used by the Shabab, stopping the attackers before they could do great damage. The Shabab Islamists affiliated with Al-Qaeda and who have been fighting the Somali federal government since 2007, for their part affirmed in a press release that they had carried out 2 suicide operations against the military base of the Ethiopian forces in the locality of Dolo in the region of Gedo on the Somali side of the border. The Ethiopian army provides a contingent to the African Union force in Somalia, which supports the Somali government against Shabab. And a delegation of African heads of state is expected to visit Ukraine and Russia in the next few days, hoping to persuade them to cease hostilities. A spokesperson for the South African President, Cyril Ramaphosa, affirmed last month that this would happen. No date has been set for the mission as yet. Ukraine's Foreign Minister, Dmytro Kuleba, points out that such a proposal means that Russian troops would remain on Ukrainian soil even as peace talks start. Ukraine previously said Russian forces should withdraw before such negotiations could begin, while Moscow wants Kyiv to recognize Russian sovereignty over a Crimea as a precondition for negotiations. Mr. Kuleba has been on a charm offensive in Africa to win support in a continent where 30 of the 54 African member states of the United Nations member states voted in favor of the UN resolution condemning Russia's invasion. He had no details on what the African peace mission entailed, but appears to welcome it. Meanwhile, 4 billion rand is what is needed to address the water issue in Hammanskraal. But in the meantime, water tankers will be made available to the community. These are the words of President Cyril Ramaphosa as he addressed concerned residents of the area in Pretoria North, South Africa. The community has been hit hard by a cholera outbreak that has claimed lives of 26 people. On Thursday morning, before heading to the Temba Stadium, where he addressed the community, the president, along with the Health Department Minister, Dr. Joe Pala, and other officials, started off at the Rival wastewater plant that supplies the treatment plant that gives the people of Hammanskraal water. While the cause of cholera, which is a waterborne bacterial disease, is still being investigated, Mr. Ramaphosa started off by apologizing to the people. South African President Ramaphosa is due to lead a delegation of leaders to the township where the deadly outbreak of cholera has been reported.
I want the problem of water, my dear Mayor, to be your priority focus, day and night. The origins of this, I've outlined, and I've also said, you have a right to water, clean water, as the people of South Africa. We are sorry that we have not been able to give you that right of access to clean water. We accept that. I also told you where the problem has come from, where over years, over many years, the waterworks here in Rooiwal has not been maintained, expanded to be able to handle the volumes of water or effluent, as they call it, that has been coming in. As the population in Tshwane has been growing, the municipality needed to realize it's growing and expand the waterworks and invest money, capital, as well as maintenance. The two of them have not been done. We are now going to change that around, because we are saying, yes, there must be the revamping, the expansion, and there must be maintenance. That has to be done, or else there's going to be big trouble.
Still on health issues, but over in Uganda, where President Yoweri Museveni has admitted to contracting COVID-19 after one of 3 tests conducted on him turned out positive. Mr. Museveni, who gave a State of the Nation address on Wednesday, said he had developed a slight cold, prompting him to get tested. The Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Health, Diana Atwin, confirms that the president had developed mild flu-like symptoms but is in good condition and will continue his duties while adhering to the standard operating procedures for COVID cases. Uganda has had some of the strictest measures in Africa to limit the spread of the virus at the height of the pandemic, including long curfews and closure of schools and businesses. Welcome back. Former DRC Minister of Health, Tenny Longondo, has been acquitted of charges of embezzlement of funds allocated to fight COVID-19. Mr. Longondo, Minister of Health from 2019 to 2021, had been suspected by the General Inspectorate of Finance of having embezzled more than $7 million intended for the fight against the pandemic. Mr. Longondo, who spent about 3 weeks in pre-trial detention in 2021, has always denied embezzling the money. He was acquitted by the Court of Cassation, which concluded that there was no incriminating evidence against him. Well, today, the World Oceans Day will be celebrated worldwide, serving as a poignant reminder of the immense significance of the ocean in our lives. Currently, over 800 million people are affected by hunger around the world. Aquatic foods, with their high nutritional value, emerge as a promising solution to address not only hunger, but also malnutrition. The world's consumption of aquatic food has increased significantly in recent years to over 20 kilograms per capita per year and will continue to rise.
There is not a single problem that we have nowadays, whether it is climate change, whether it is food security, whether it is poverty, that can be solved without considering the oceans as part of the solution. Aquatic foods is a huge opportunity. It's a huge opportunity not just because of the volume of production, but also because the nutritional composition of aquatic foods is phenomenal in terms of a macronutrient composition, particularly for children and women during the age of pregnancies. That is an important component of aquatic foods, and That's why people are looking at aquatic foods as part of the solution to the problem of hunger and malnutrition. Aquaculture has been the fastest growing food production system for the last 5 decades, from virtually zero 3 or 4 decades ago to now virtually the same production as capture fisheries. So this is what has allowed us to increase aquatic food consumption. In fact, the consumption of aquatic foods has been growing at twice the rate of population growth. So it's making a significant impact into the improvements in nutrition without affecting the ocean. The Blue Transformation Initiative is a vision from FAO that has started with two big principles. The first is to accept that aquatic foods are part of the solution to hunger and malnutrition. That's the first. We need to accept that this is part of what we want to do. The second is the recognition that transformation is happening even without us doing anything.
And here in Nigeria, the governor of Nasarawa State in the north-central region, Abdullahi Sule, believes that the fuel subsidy regime should have been stopped a long time ago. He expressed his worry on the huge sums of money spent under the last administration of President Muhammadu Buhari in the repairs of the 4 refineries that still never worked. According to him, over $19 billion were spent in the last 8 years to repair the refineries, and that less than that amount was used by Alhaji Aliko Dangote in building his refinery that's almost 2 times the size of all Nigeria's 4 refineries put together. The governor was our guest on our morning show, Sunrise Daily, today.
I have always supported removal of subsidy as a professional, as my background, because I knew there was too much fraud in it. Because the only reason why we are paying subsidy is because we are not refining. Okay? So if we had taken care of our refineries very well, there wouldn't have been this. In the year 2002 or so, we gave 18 licenses, DPR. I was there in Lagos. You know, on the phone we gave 18 licenses for private refineries. Not one of them was built. So a lot of things have happened. Government tried this, it didn't work. Tried this, it didn't work. All thinking that if we had done that, all this problem of subsidy will have been over. Look at how much the President Buhari administration spent, you know, on fixing of the refineries. In the 8 years, he spent more money than the 19 billion that Dangote spent in building a refinery that is 1.5 times the size of all our 3 refineries combined. Our 3 refineries in Nigeria today have a total of 450,000 barrels per day. Dangote is 650,000. He spent $19 billion in building it. We spent in maintaining, not building a new one, maintaining these new refineries more than 19 billion in the 8 years. Yet, they have not been maintained.
So is it that government is helpless? They can't arrest them or let them face the music?
No,
defaulters?
Okay, let me tell you one of the problems we face at the refineries. The refinery is actually components. Component for water, component for crude, component for this. So you have about 5 or 6 different components that constitute a refinery. The moment the government says we are going to spend $2 billion this year on a refinery. So what the government does, the $2 billion are spent. So as far as President is concerned, we have given the $2 billion. Now, when it goes to the 4 refineries, or the 3 refineries, three effective refineries that we have in Port Harcourt, Wari, and Kaduna, then they say, okay, you now take 700 million, you now take 800 million, you now take that. By the time they take that, it goes to fix maybe, you know, only 1 component out of the 4 components that are all bad. So 0 work is done. These are the true realities of what is happening. And that's why none of the refineries is working.
Nasarawa State Governor Abdullahi Sule. And finally, on the program, in Nigeria, again, classical music is not so popular, but violinist Roslyn Anenye had an idea to grow its acceptance locally. That's when she came up with an orchestra showing classical music in Yoruba. Since then, the taste for classical music has been growing among every age group.
At the Lagos Cultural Center, a rapt audience listens to baritone John Onosoliashe perform an operatic song in the Yoruba language. about a hapless soldier being admonished for his failure to cook a flavorsome dish of beans. He cooks and there's no pepper, no oil, no salt, no onions. It is bland. What sort of food is this? Sings Onosoliashe, drawing laughter and cheers from an audience accustomed to fairy Nigerian staples such as pepper soup. The scene is part of the opera Kitchen Pictures at a Military Camp, composed by Seun Owoaje. Founder of the Vesta Orchestra, Rosalind Aniye, says she came up with the idea of the orchestra while she was living in Vienna.
My flat was actually behind the Opera House, and it was always a dream of mine to come home to Nigeria and discover our own classical music. And so I did that. I came home, joined hands with a few friends, and we formed the orchestra. And now we have a foundation that sees to it that young musicians in Lagos have a place to perform music.
Aniye, who's a violinist, started Vesta Orchestra and Opera Foundation in 2017 in a bid to enliven the classical music scene in Lagos by performing new works by contemporary Nigerian and African composers. As in many Nigerian cities, music is inescapable in Lagos, whose 21 million inhabitants can hear popular songs in the form of phone ringtones, music concerts, or blaring out of speakers on transit buses. But classical music is not well known.
We knew from the beginning that our mission is to educate the people to appreciate again the true Nigerian heritage and the classical music from Europe. And we kept playing and we kept playing, and it's like children who keep doing the same beautiful things, and then they finally learn.
And they have continued to grow, drawing in new converts. Kayode Oshundun and Larry Shashore are guests at the performance.
This is my first time attending this kind of event, and I'm so happy that there are events like this in Nigeria, because prior to this I had no idea that there were orchestras in Nigeria. So I'm actually happy. The music was good, everyone was good, and I like the violin a lot, so I'm very, very happy.
It's fantastic. It's great to be able to enjoy different types of entertainment right here at home. So this was just another opportunity to get to do that. And classical music is something that I enjoy, especially classical music that is also grounded in Nigerian musical history.
Half of the program at the event is music by African composers like Seun Owoaje, Victor Waifo, and Bobby Benson. It is called Afri-Classical Series because they play African classic music and others from the rest of the world. As Aniye would say, with music, you don't have to convince anybody because art has its audience.
Well, that's our show today. Thank you for watching and enjoying good music. I'm Joke Rogers. Bye for now.